Coming up this weekend, a rematch of the 2020 Fight of the Year, Tapology's 7th ranked greatest fight of all time. We have the return of Joanna champion Joanna Jedrzejczyk. She has been out since that fight in early 2020, and her opponent, Magnum, Zhang Weili, Trojan man. It's going to be an interesting fight because I look at this as Zhang Weili's made odd progressions, I guess, since that fight. She's trained out of Fight Ready MMA down in Arizona. And if you look at it, she's lost 2 fights since their original booking. She fought Rose Namajunas. She got finished early. And then she lost a split decision against Namajunas. We'll talk about that one as this video goes along. But for Zhang Weili, incorporated a little bit of the wrestling into that second booking with Namajunas. And I like that. But the weirdest wrinkle out of this entire one is that has Joanna Jedrzejczyk made a championship level Karolina Kowalkiewicz? Maybe she has an American Top Team. Those two had fought in the past. And Karolina looked great in her fight last weekend and retired Felice Herrig. But for Zhang Weili, as, you know, good as those kind of implements or improvements into her game have looked with the wrestling, for this camp in the last, 11, 12 weeks from her Instagram, she's trained at Bang Tao Muay Thai with the Hickman brothers, and that's their new gym in Thailand.
I love that move, I'm going to be honest.
So do I.
Because Weili Zhang, and you can think about this 2 different ways. When she had originally gone to Fight Ready, you think, okay, she's trying to make her game a little bit more well-rounded, and we saw her do that. It's just, that might not necessarily have been the best way for her to grow her game. It's like when Kevin Durant went to the Golden State Warriors. He didn't necessarily go to the Golden State Warriors just because, oh, it's a super team, it's going to make my life easier. He went there for spacing. Well, no, okay. Here's the thing. There's a guy named Moses Brown. He's a very old man. He's a legendary high school coach. He developed Kevin Durant into the player that he is. He gave him 3 moves when he was in high school, and then he just basically developed a bunch of counters off these 3 moves, and now KD's one of the greatest players ever. My point is, Kevin Durant, when he played for OKC, had no spacing. So he couldn't get better as a player because everything he did was against a double team because they didn't respect the other players on offense. So he went to a different system that worked better with his skill set, so it also made him a better player. I think Weili Zhang going to the Hickman brothers' new gym is almost going to do the same thing for her game. It's not the fact that it's going to make her well-rounded and help the areas of the game that she needs help in. I just think her going back to her roots is going to make her a more familiar fighter to the fighter who fought Joanna the first time. And this might be a bit of an exaggeration, but, you know, we like boxing a little bit on this channel. The 4 kings are very famous: Hagler, Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Roberto Duran. I almost said Arturo Gatti, oh my goodness. But there almost is like a 4 queens in this strawweight division. You have Weili Zhang, Jessica Andrade, Joanna Jedrzejczyk, and Rose Namajunas. All 4 of these women have fought each other, and multiple times at this point. But they have all been in their primes at a different stage, and that's the thing about this fight. This fight, entertainment-wise, could be as good as their first fight. Don't get me wrong, both of them are these flashy, amazing strikers on the feet. But these fighters aren't going to be at the same level that they were in their first fight. I do think Joanna Jedrzejczyk at this stage of her career has eaten a lot of damage, made a lot of money, been a big enough public figure to where the desire probably isn't there, to where you gotta remember, this lady won a UFC title all the way back at UFC 185. Her and Rafael dos Anjos became UFC champions in the same night. RDA's been around for a very long time, you have to remember. Like, it has been years and years and years since Joanna has been in her prime and since she had originally won a title. It's kind of like expecting Conor McGregor to come back nowadays and be the same fighter he was all the way back when he beat Chad Mendes and Jose Aldo. It's just, priorities change. Having long-term success will change your priorities. And for Joanna, like, I don't sit here thinking that she's going to be able to go through a similar fight that she did in their first fight. I don't think she's going to want to go through that again. It's just, this isn't for the title. The stakes aren't as high. They're at different stages of their career. But this is what I will say. Weili, I think, wakes up every day thinking, how do I get back to a UFC title shot? I think her last fight against Rose Namajunas was a very close fight. I know a lot of people had that fight for her. It was just close. That's all I'm going to say. No matter who it went to, I didn't think it was a robbery by any means. But to me, Weili is still thinking, how do I become a UFC champion? And for Joanna, I kind of liken it to Sugar Ray coming back at the end of his career. Like when he fought Tommy Hearns, like way back in the 80s. Like they fought in 81 and then they fought in 89. It was a long time that had gone by since they had fought the first time. And for Joanna, like, she's done so much in her career already. I don't expect her to go into this fight and then accomplish a lot more afterwards.
I mean, the flip side of that is Anthony Pettis lost to RDA, had some competitive crazy fights after that.
But he was never the same guy after that. He had never fought for a title.
Still winning with PFL. And for Joanna, with your PFL analogy, with your analogy where you threw a dart and you hit a chessboard, it's a game. Games are games, and you hit a game. But the thing that I have to say, in the first fight between Zhang Weili and Joanna Jedrzejczyk, I had it tied going into the 5th round, and I scored the 5th round for Joanna based on the shot she was able to land. I know her face, she looks like a non-human, but in that one, I actually scored it for Joanna. But then I went through...
This is close of a fight as you can see.
Yeah, MMA decisions. 5 had it 49-46 Zhang. 10 had it 48-47 Zhang. 6 had it 48-47 for Jedrzejczyk. Nobody scored it any further. And then I look at Zhang Weili her last time out, and it was either 48-47 for Rose or for Zhang Weili. Like, it was a really close fight. But again, I thought Zhang won the first 2 rounds. Rose won the next 2. 5th one, again, was a bit of a kicker. You can make an argument. But Zhang Weili, again, training at Fight Ready with Cejudo and his pillows, she was able to gain that wrestling edge. She's training with Deiveson Figueiredo. You're going to get better at some of those positions. Do I expect her to do it against Joanna? Possibly. But I look at, again, Bang Tao. The Hickman brothers are great at really rounding out a skill set and adding that extra edge. You saw it when they were training with the Volkanovskis or the Adesanyas of the world. There's so many people that like to train with those guys, whether it's in New Zealand, whether it's in the States, like traveling circus, so to speak, for those 2 brothers in high demand. But now that they have their own gym in Thailand at Bang Tao, they're bringing in big talent. There's somebody else that's finishing off their camp there, just getting acclimatized. Yuri Prochazka's also there now, who is at Fight Ready as well. So interesting there. But I do like that for Zhang Weili. For Joanna, I do expect a very good competitive fight out of her. At 34, you sit there, you wonder. She hasn't had a fight since that last one against Zhang Weili. That fight 2 years, 2 months ago. Joanna's last win against Michelle Waterson.
She beat the brakes off.
2 years and 7 months ago, she has lost to Valentina that didn't make a lot of sense at 125, but was somewhat competitive.
She looked good. Again, yeah. Everybody gets mad at me every time I say this, but like, Joanna up until... I'm trying to think. Who was the last person? Like, Andrade had a little bit of success in the first couple of minutes, but Valentina beat the brakes off her, too. Like, Joanna, really, her and Jennifer Maia are the only 2 people to, like, win a round off Valentina. So, the fact that Jedrzejczyk was so undersized in that matchup, but was still able to have some success, I do think is a huge feather in her cap.
Matt, the odds have this, listen... Zhang Weili open at -150, -175 right now. Joanna, your friend at Buffalo Wild Wings, Jedrzejczyk, open to +130. She's now +145. Matt, for Jedrzejczyk, I think she has a better opportunity than that. So we're going to have a look at the Tapology vote. Surprise to us there to you. I'm going to say over-under 67.5% Zhang Weili.
Say under.
I'm going to say under, slightly under. So 897 total votes, 62% Zhang, 82% by decision. For the 38% that have Joanna Jedrzejczyk, 84% by decision. I think Zhang Weili wins this fight. I think she mixes in her wrestling in this one. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But I think she has an edge in most categories in this one. At this point in 2022.
If Robbie Lawler and Nick Diaz can be a 5-round main card pay-per-view fight, this sure as heck should have been.
Papa, what are we doing here?
That's not, like, this fight more than any fight in UFC history should be a, hey, let's just make it 5 rounds. Like, their first fight is one of the greatest fights of all time. Regardless of gender, weight class, titles, I don't care. It is one of the all-time great fights between 2 humans. Again, it was very close. It wasn't a robbery no matter who you had it for, but it was very competitive. I do worry about Jedrzejczyk's ability to take damage at this stage of her career, though. She took 2.5 years off, basically, for a reason. She is trying to look for the proper matchups to get her back to a title shot, and she isn't interested in fighting the 10th-ranked fighter and working her way back up to the top. And I do think her priorities are a little bit different at this stage of her career, and that's why I do like Weili in this matchup. I do think it's going to be a phenomenal fight, just because stylistically, these 2 fighters are sort of action fighters, like you had said at the early part of this video. This is going to be better than Carlos Esparza versus Rose Namajunas too. I can almost guarantee you that. So I do like Weili, but this could be a great fight.
The first fight was in the pantheon of greatness with Bigfoot Silva, Mark Hunt. If you don't believe me, go back and watch their first fight. It was wild. The second one wasn't as good. But this one should be, well, maybe like that. Maybe it won't be as good as the first, but I am hoping it will be. Both of us going with a former champion, Magnum Zhang Weili to get the win, and going from Magnum to Bullet Valentina Shevchenko in the co-main event, taking on Tyler Santos in the main event. Glover Teixeira against BJP, Yuri Prochazka.
This is what I will say, though, and I'm almost arguing against my own point. Hear me out.
Don't do it.
Joanna Jedrzejczyk, when she saw Carla Esparza win the title, probably got a pretty big boost in confidence. She's coming off 2 losses to Rose Namajunas. If she gets this win, you're probably not going to get the 3rd fight against Rose just because you've already lost to her twice. Now there is a window for Joanna to eventually get a title shot if she is able to win this weekend. So maybe that is the extra motivation that she needed to be like, okay, if I beat Weili, if I look really good this weekend, I can become champion again. I could become Joanna champion. So I will say that. She was a great champion at one point, so maybe that is the extra motivation she needed, but I still like Weili.
Both of us going with Zhang Weili. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. As we always say, let's get into it.